Marcus lived alone in a small apartment on the edge of the city. He worked hard, but his evenings were quiet. The silence pressed on him after long days at the construction site. He had no wife, no children, no family near him. He often sat by the window and wondered if life would always feel this empty. One evening, he read a small article in the newspaper. It was about children who lived in a foster home nearby. Most were waiting for families, but some had waited too long. 6 little girls had been there for years. People walked past them, choosing others. They were seen as too old, too quiet, too different. Marcus folded the paper and held it for a long time. His heart ached. He knew the feeling of being unwanted. He had grown up in a poor household, often overlooked himself. The thought of those girls sitting in a home, waiting year after year, stayed with him. He went to bed that night, but sleep did not come. The faces of children he had never met filled his mind. Something deep inside told him that his life was about to change, though he did not yet know how. Marcus decided to visit the foster home on a Saturday morning. He wore his best shirt, though it was plain, and carried nothing but nervous hope. The director, an older woman with kind eyes, led him through the halls. She spoke softly as they walked. These 6 girls, she said, have been here the longest. People usually want babies or very young children. These girls are harder to place. Marcus nodded, his heart beating faster. When they entered the room, he saw them. 6 pairs of eyes looked at him. The oldest, maybe 12, sat tall and guarded. The youngest, only 5, clutched a small toy. The others sat close together, like a little circle of safety. No one spoke at first. Marcus smiled gently. "Hello," he said. "My name is Marcus." His voice was calm, warm. The girls exchanged looks. They had met many adults before, people who came and went. Yet something about Marcus felt different. He did not rush. He did not stare. He simply sat on a chair across from them, waiting. Finally, the youngest whispered, "Hi." It was one word, but it was enough. Something fragile had begun to shift in the air. Marcus felt it in his chest, like the first crack of light after a long night. The director left them alone for a while. Marcus stayed seated, leaning forward slightly. He asked simple questions. "Do you like to read? What games do you play?" His voice carried patience. The girls answered in short words at first. The oldest, her hair tied back neatly, spoke for the group. "We all read. We play together. We don't get chosen." Her last words hung heavy in the room. Marcus's heart tightened. He looked at each girl, one by one. Their eyes carried stories he did not know yet, but he could see their strength. He said gently, "Maybe people didn't see what I see." The youngest smiled for the first time. She leaned toward him, clutching her toy rabbit. Another girl reached for the juice box on the table, offering it to him shyly. Marcus laughed softly and took it. "Thank you," he said. His laughter filled the room with warmth. For the first time in a long time. The girls were not looking at the door, waiting for someone else to leave. They were looking at him. Something began to grow between them. Not yet a family, but a spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, one day, they could be. Weeks passed after that first visit. Marcus came often, sometimes after work, sometimes on weekends. He brought board games, books, and small snacks. The girls grew used to his presence. They laughed louder, trusted more, and waited eagerly for him. One afternoon, Marcus sat in the office of the foster home. The adoption papers were spread before him. His hands trembled slightly as he picked up the pen. The director asked, "Are you sure? 6 children is a lot of responsibility." Marcus looked toward the window, where the girls were playing in the yard. Their laughter drifted into the room like music. His decision was clear. "Yes," he said firmly. "They're mine now." The pen scratched across the paper. His name sealed their future together. The director smiled, though her eyes were wet. "They're lucky," she said softly. When Marcus walked out of the office, the girls ran to him. They did not know the details yet, but they saw the look on his face. The oldest whispered, "Did you?" He knelt, pulling them close. "You're coming home with me," he said. For a moment, none of them moved. Then 6 small voices burst into laughter and tears all at once. It was the sound of a new beginning. Marcus's apartment changed quickly. He bought bunk beds and painted the girls' room bright colors. The living room filled with toys, books, and shoes of every size. The once quiet space now carried the sound of footsteps, chatter, and laughter. Their first dinner together was simple: spaghetti with tomato sauce, served on mismatched plates. The girls sat close, whispering and giggling. Marcus watched them from the kitchen doorway. his chest heavy with joy. Asterisk, the youngest, twirled her fork clumsily, spilling noodles on her lap. She looked worried, but Marcus only laughed gently. "That means you're eating well," he said. She grinned, relieved. The oldest spoke softly, her voice uncertain. "Is it really okay? All 6 of us. Nobody wanted us before." Asterisk, Marcus walked over and placed his hand on her shoulder. His voice was steady. "I wanted you. All of you. You're mine now." Asterisk, the table went quiet for a moment. Then the girls began eating again with brighter smiles. The air felt lighter, like a heavy door had been opened. Later that night, Marcus stood at the doorway of their room. The girls were already asleep, curled together under blankets. For the first time in years, their faces were peaceful. Asterisk, Marcus whispered to himself, "We're a family now." Life with 6 children was not easy, but Marcus found joy in every moment. Saturdays became their special day. He would take the girls to the market, letting them explore the stalls filled with fruits, fabrics, and little trinkets. The girls stayed close to him, holding his hands or tugging on his shirt. The youngest pointed at a stand of bright oranges. "Can we get some?" she asked. Marcus nodded and bought a small bag. As they walked, people stared. A black man with 6 little girls of different shades and features drew attention. Some faces carried curiosity, others judgment. Marcus felt the stares, but held his head high. Asterisk, at one stall, the girls spotted second-hand books. Their eyes lit up. Marcus bought them each one, even though money was tight. "Books will take you anywhere," he said. That evening, they sat on the floor of the living room, reading aloud to each other. Laughter mixed with the sound of pages turning. The girls leaned against him, their heads resting on his arms and shoulders. Asterisk, the market trip had been small, but it felt big to them. They were not 6 forgotten children anymore. They were daughters, his daughters, and Marcus promised himself that no matter the struggle, he would never let them feel unwanted again. Asterisk, school brought new challenges. The girls were bright, but years in foster care had left gaps in their learning. Marcus sat with them every evening at the dining table, turning homework into a family event. The oldest girl struggled with math, tapping her pencil in frustration. Marcus leaned close, showing her step by step. "It's like building a wall," he explained, "one brick at a time." She frowned, then slowly solved the problem. A small smile spread across her face. Asterisk, another girl read aloud with a shaky voice. Marcus listened patiently, never correcting too fast, always encouraging. "Take your time," he said. When she finished, the whole table clapped. She beamed with pride. The youngest colored pictures beside them, humming quietly. She looked up at Marcus often, as if checking that he was still there. Each time, he smiled back, steady and present. Homework sessions were messy, papers scattered, pencils dropped, and sometimes arguments flared. But the room was alive. Marcus realized these were the moments that mattered, the simple routines that built trust, security, and love. When the girls finally went to bed, Marcus stayed behind to clean up. He gathered their notebooks, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders, but also the warmth of something deeper. His small apartment had become a home filled with purpose. As months passed, Marcus often stayed awake, long after the girls had fallen asleep. The apartment was quiet again at night, but it no longer felt empty. He would sit on the couch, staring at the growing collection of photographs on the wall. Pictures of birthdays with homemade cakes, pictures of messy market trips, pictures of tired evenings filled with books and laughter. Each frame told a story of how far they had come together. Asterisk, Marcus thought about the future. Raising 6 daughters would not be easy. There would be school fees, medical bills, and endless needs. He was only one man, working long hours on construction sites. Sometimes the weight of it pressed on his chest. But then he remembered the first time he saw them in the foster home. Their guarded eyes, their silence, their fragile hope. They had chosen to trust him, and he had chosen them. He whispered into the quiet room, "We'll be okay." On the wall, the smiling faces of his daughters seemed to answer back. The silence was no longer heavy. It was full of promise. One Saturday morning, Marcus decided it was time the girls learned to cook. He gathered them in the kitchen and placed bowls of flour, eggs, and milk on the counter. "We're making pancakes," he announced. The girls cheered. The youngest climbed onto a chair to see better. The oldest tried to organize everyone, but the kitchen quickly turned chaotic. Flour dusted the counters, eggs cracked unevenly, and laughter echoed through the room. One girl spilled milk across the table. She froze, expecting Marcus to be upset. Instead, he chuckled and grabbed a towel. "Accidents mean you're learning," he said. Relief spread across her face, and she joined the laughter. Together, they mixed the batter, poured it onto the pan, and flipped the pancakes with shaky hands. Some turned out too dark, others too soft, but it didn't matter. When they sat down to eat, the pancakes tasted sweeter because they had made them together. The girls crowded around Marcus, eager to share their creations. He smiled, his plate full, his heart fuller. It wasn't about the food. It was about teaching them skills, sharing moments, and showing them that mistakes were part of life. The kitchen was a mess, but it was a beautiful mess, the kind that only a real family makes. Summer brought long evenings. On clear nights, Marcus would lead the girls up to the rooftop of their building. They carried blankets and small snacks, turning the space into their private escape. The city lights shimmered in the distance, but above them the stars spread wide and bright. The girls lay close, pointing at constellations. One whispered, "That one looks like a rabbit." Another said, "That one's a crown." Marcus smiled, listening to their voices drift into the night. The oldest girl leaned against him. "Why did you choose us?" she asked quietly. He took a moment before answering. "Because I saw strength in your eyes. Because I wanted you, all of you." She nodded slowly, her guard softening more than ever before. The younger ones giggled, telling silly stories about stars turning into animals. Their laughter carried in the warm air. For Marcus, the rooftop became a sacred place. It was where silence was filled, not with loneliness, but with connection, where the bond between them grew stronger with every shared word, every quiet moment under the sky. That night, as the girls fell asleep one by one against his side, Marcus looked at the stars and whispered a promise. "No matter what comes, I'll always be here." The sky above seemed to shine brighter, as if answering his vow. Years moved forward. The girls grew taller, stronger, and braver. School events became important days. Marcus never missed a single one. He would leave work early, sometimes sacrificing pay, just to be there in the audience. One evening, the school held an award ceremony. Two of the girls walked nervously onto the stage. One held a certificate for reading, the other for art. Their faces glowed under the lights, but their eyes searched for one person. Marcus stood in the crowd, clapping harder than anyone else. His smile stretched wide, his pride visible to all. The other sisters jumped and cheered beside him, shouting their names with excitement. When the ceremony ended, the two girls ran into Marcus's arms. "You saw us," one whispered. "I'll always see you," Marcus said firmly. It was not the awards that mattered most to him. It was the way they looked at him, no longer afraid of being invisible, no longer doubting that they belonged. Walking home that night, the girls surrounded him, their voices filling the air with joy. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility still, but he also felt the strength of family. Their journey together had not been easy, but moments like this proved it was worth everything. Holidays were once lonely for Marcus, but now they were filled with warmth. That December, he brought home a small Christmas tree. It wasn't tall, but it was enough. The girls' eyes lit up as he carried it into the living room. They gathered around, unpacking boxes of ornaments from a thrift store. Some were chipped, some mismatched, but the girls treated them like treasures. The youngest hung hers too low, and another gently moved it higher. Laughing, Marcus sat on the couch, untangling strings of lights. He watched them, smiling quietly. Their laughter rose and filled the room like music. When the tree was finally decorated, the girls stood back to admire it. The lights glowed softly, reflecting in their eyes. One of them whispered, "It feels like magic." Marcus pulled them close, wrapping his arms around all six. "The magic is you," he said. That night, they sat together on the floor, drinking hot chocolate. Gifts were few and simple, but none of them cared. The real gift was togetherness, something they had once believed impossible. For Marcus, the sight of 6 girls resting against him by the glowing tree was more valuable than anything money could buy. His home, once silent, now carried the heartbeat of family. As the girls grew older, new challenges appeared. The oldest, now a teenager, carried questions heavier than her sisters. One rainy afternoon, she sat at the kitchen table, her eyes downcast. Marcus noticed immediately. He sat across from her, waiting silently. Finally, she whispered, "Why didn't anyone want us before?" The question struck deep. Marcus felt his throat tighten, but he steadied his voice. "Sometimes people don't see the value in others. They looked for something easy, something perfect, but they missed what I saw. She looked up, eyes shining with tears. What did you see? I saw 6 girls who had strength. I saw hearts that needed love. And I saw my family. The words hung in the air. Slowly, her shoulders relaxed. She reached across the table, taking his hand. Thank you, she said softly. In that moment, Marcus realized that love wasn't just about food or shelter. It was about answering the hardest questions, holding space for pain, and showing again and again that he would never leave. The rain tapped against the windows, but inside the kitchen, there was warmth. A father and daughter, bound not by blood, but by choice, by trust, and by love that grew stronger each day. Time moved on, and the little girls became young women. They still crowded around Marcus, but now they carried themselves with confidence. Each had her own dream, her own talent, her own path beginning to form. One sunny afternoon, they gathered in a small park for a family picture. Marcus wore his favorite shirt, the same one from years ago when he first met them. The girls teased him about it, laughing, but he only smiled. The photographer asked them to pose. Marcus knelt in the center, his arms stretched wide, pulling them close. 6 young women leaned against him, their smiles bright and unguarded. The camera clicked, capturing not just faces but a journey. From the silence of the foster home to the warmth of family. From fear of being unwanted to the joy of being chosen. When Marcus looked at the photo later, his eyes blurred with tears. He saw not 6 abandoned girls, but 6 daughters. Each one a living proof that love could rewrite a story. That evening, they framed the picture and hung it on the wall. It joined the many memories that covered their home, a timeline of laughter, growth, and love. For Marcus, the photo was more than an image. It was a promise kept. Years later, the girls were no longer children. They had grown into strong, independent women. Some studied at universities, others worked jobs they loved. But no matter how far they traveled, they always returned to Marcus. One evening, they gathered at the porch of a modest house Marcus had worked hard to buy. He sat in a chair, his hair now touched with gray. His daughters stood around him, their faces glowing with love and gratitude. The youngest, now grown, leaned down and whispered, "You saved us." Marcus shook his head gently. "No," he said, "you saved me." They stayed there together, watching the sun set. The sky glowed in soft colors, wrapping them in quiet peace. Each daughter carried her own story, but all shared one truth. They had been unwanted once, but through Marcus's love, they had become cherished, protected, and free. As the evening grew still, Marcus closed his eyes, listening to the voices of his daughters around him. Laughter, gentle conversation, the sound of family. His life had begun in silence, but it ended in harmony. 6 daughters, 6 lives forever tied to his, and the truth, the one that mattered most, was simple. They had never been unwanted. They had always been chosen.